In the late 1800s, men imprisoned under the Black Codes were forced to work in coal mines. This undercut wages and hurt attempts to organize labor unions. In 1891, 300 Coal Creek, Tennessee miners stormed a blockade where prisoners were housed and broke them out. The white community sheltered and clothed the freedmen and helped them escape. For years, pieces of convict clothing showed up in East Tennessee quilts. Now, more than 100 years later, the global economy pits workers against each other. They struggle to find solidarity.
If you see somebody from Morristown turning over the chair, what they're looking to see is where that chair is manufactured in. And we do that all over the world as we turn over chairs and look at them. In 1960, we bought the first land for the first industrial park. It was the second industrial park in the state of Tennessee.
I wish I was in the land of cotton, wages there on the
If your wage rates are excessively high, then you won't attract quality industry and quality jobs.
Sunny, you can make all kinds of money. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. I'll move my plant to Dixie today, today. I'll lock the gates and close the doors. Goodbye to union wages. Away, away, away we'll go to Dixie. Away, away, away we'll go to Dixie.
To avoid unions and union wages, companies moved south. And in East Tennessee, many workers struggled to win union contracts. Their efforts built a stable working class that became the economic basis of the community. In the 80s, that changed.
I came to Morristown to work as a young girl. You know, there just wasn't, I had to work. There was a little clique that run the town, and it was hard to get on in a factory. This is General Electric right here. It's where I worked for 12 years. They laid off according to seniority.
But you were 12 years seniority, it wasn't enough to hold you
Oh no, it wasn't enough because most people worked there had a lot of seniority. I eventually found a job at Lowe's. I make $7.50 an hour.
When we moved on this street, the majority of this street was Magnavox people. And now the only one that's left that still works there, that I know for sure, is me.
Kick it for Nanny. Good boy.
This is the only plant in this country that's producing televisions right now. There's not a VCR, there's not a radio, there's not a camcorder, there's none of that by any company built in this country. It's all gone. One day I came in and there was all the equipment that I worked on and it was in crates. And I said, well, I guess I'll just go over here and work on tuners. No, we're going to be boxing it up and sending it too. So all these different big fixtures that I had that I used to work on these boards for big screen televisions. And those were all in boxes and sent to Mexico.
I work now at Breed Technologies. A few months ago, I worked for Allied Signal. And without that union contract, I don't think the company could run. Every 2 years or so, you got new management there. You got to start all over again.
Then you have to break them in.
Oh, Lord.
Tomorrow they could sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And what can we do?
Nothing.
The assembly happens now in the maquilas in Mexico. We lost thousands of jobs. That was some hurt years. Like Janice said, we was talking earlier, there ought to be a cap on the money they can make.
Especially when your CEO makes $16 million a year.
16 million?
Larry Bossidy, yes.
Ex-CEO.
Ex-CEO. He's over Allied Signal. $16 million. There's nobody worth that kind of money. Nobody.
Not when you're paying Mexican workers, what?
$3 a day.
$3, $4 a day. I was just like everybody else. They took our jobs out of here. They took them to the Mexican workers where they're paying cheaper wages, and we've given up some of our wages to keep these jobs here. I was just like furious.
The maquiladoras were an experiment in the movement of capital across borders. They created a zone in Mexico which could produce goods or parts of goods that could go across the border without tariffs, kind of an early NAFTA. There were a bunch of rules, but respect for the rights of workers, decent pay levels, and environmental standards were not part of the deal. In 1991, a grassroots organization sent a group of factory workers from East Tennessee to the Mexican side of the border so they could see what had happened to their jobs.
One thing I asked him was, I said, well, why are all these people so young? And he said, well, we hire some older people.
I didn't see any,
I said, where are they? He said, well, look at me. I went to work for General Motors when I was a young man.
But you know, I wouldn't want my kids to have that kind of opportunity to treat people the way they treat them.
But it makes me sad that I'm an American.
The wages that the workers are making here, where they cut in half, what do they make an hour here compared to what they make there?
Gee, gotta think now. We're probably, what is the number? First grade. First grade worker. We're probably, we're I think about 2.5 times, 3 times the minimum wage. And I'll convert that for you in a minute. I think that's about right. 2 to 3 times, 3 times the minimum wage.
How many pesos per week?
Between 2 and 4 times. 2 and 4 times. So let's strike an average of 3 times minimum wage. Pesos would be then 30, 150, what, 15? What am I thinking?
On weekdays, Alfredo worked in a factory which had been located in Tennessee, making airplane headlights. After nearly 10 years of employment, he earned $8 a day.
Ay, no. No, no nos alcanza. Incluso, pues, por eso él tiene que trabajar también los fines de semana. Somos de aquí, aquí nacimos. Mi papá es de Torreón, pero ya tiene muchos años aquí. Mi esposo es de Veracruz y ya tiene aquí casi 10 años. No es justo de que deje tantos años de su vida ahí en esa fábrica que al último no le va a dar nada. Pues tenemos 3 niños y luego una niña ya está en la escuela. Pues no nos alcanza nada. Ándale, Danta, pásale. Ah, es un baby shower de mi hermana. Y le estamos haciendo su baby shower, por eso pasa y pasa gente. ¿Y luego? Yo nunca he ido al paso, pero no me gusta. Se me hace muy aburrido. Pocas veces, bueno, cuando estaba en la escuela sí nos llevaron como 3 veces, pero se veía como si estuviera solo. No hay gente afuera, todo el mundo está en sus casas. Yo no aguantaría vivir allá. No, ya las traje para acá. Pásale.
Ha habido muchos brotes de iniciativas en todos lados y habemos gente organizando en todo lo que es la frontera. Pero como te decía hace rato, ¿no? O sea, te enfrentas con todo el aparato del Estado. Organizar en una fábrica con un capital extranjero y que es la mayor apuesta del gobierno, pues es echarte a todo ese monstruo encima, ¿no? Más sin embargo, nosotros creemos en que la lucha de los trabajadores, o sea, la organización, tengamos que luchar para conseguir esto, sino con la ayuda de todos los sindicatos extranjeros también que son independientes, que están afectados por la globalización. Aquí en Ciudad Juárez, para sobrevivir en una familia, debemos de ganar como 10 veces lo que estamos ganando ahorita. Todo lo que se mira allá en los edificios, aquellos grandes, aquellos ya vienen siendo en la línea del Paso, Texas. Y en la noche se mira mucho mejor porque allá es donde está más alusado que aquí en Juárez, ¿no? Yo he mirado muchas celebraciones que tienen los mexicanos en Estados Unidos en el Día de la Independencia, el 16 de septiembre. Bueno, pero ¿cuál independencia tuvimos, no? Nos independizamos de España con la ayuda de Estados Unidos y ahorita estamos esclavizados por Estados Unidos.
Because it was so hard to make a living in their own country, many Mexican workers came across the border. The migrant stream moved north and east to the farms around Morristown. There were fewer and fewer small working farms in East Tennessee. Agribusiness with migrant farm labor took hold.
Nosotros en la familia fuimos muy pobres, sufrimos mucho. Mi madre sin comer por darnos a nosotros. Cuando yo llegué aquí, que ya me quedé, que nacieron mis hijos, yo nunca quise regresar allá por ellos. Yo he trabajado en este field, yo he trabajado en todos los fields que esta compañía tiene. La posición es poner la cubeta aquí. Muchos hacen esto, pero esta es la posición apoyándose un poco en la cubeta para no balancearse, ¿me entiendes? Por una semana la gente, los muslos de aquí así. Eso duele. También duele mucho la planta del pie porque la posición es esta. Esta gente está ganando 40 centavos por cubeta desde hace 18 o 20 años. 18 o 20 años está ganando 40 centavos por cubeta.
Boqueteale, Cerillo, boqueteale.
Pues yo ahorita tengo aproximadamente unos 7 o 8 años, quizás 9, no recuerdo exactamente, ¿verdad? A trabajar con esta compañía. Componemos un grupito, ¿verdad? Como hay 14 camitas, tratamos de componer un grupo de 7 personas. Uno se encarga de hacer el lonche, otros dos nos encargamos de amasar la harina, otros dos de cocer las tortillas y así. La mayoría que vemos aquí somos de Guanajuato. Nosotros hacemos la temporada más o menos de 6 meses. El trabajo pesado, claro. Aquí todos tenemos miedo. El primer hombre que se fue, le principió un dolor aquí, mire. Por aquí decía que lo sentía él. Andamos poniendo una clase de gas muy fuerte, lo pusieron, yo no sé, sería por equivocación, yo no sé. Y de ahí resultó ese hombre con un dolor aquí. Pues no lo dejaba dormir, ahí dormía en esa camita. Pero yo mi mente sería que mis hijos no vinieran a trabajar aquí. A mí me ha ido, digo, pues, claro, ¿verdad? Nada se gana fácil. Pero yo quisiera que un día ellos pudieran sobrevivir allá y no venir a trabajar.
Como profesionales en su propio país.
Sí. Ya fuera de campesinos o de lo que fuera, pero que pudieran sobrevivir allá.
Para los que se van es duro pasar el río, los que no saben. Pero es muy duro para la mamá o la esposa. Cuando se van los hijos o el esposo y que no tienen con qué pasar, pues quedan tristes. Es muy duro para la esposa ver los niños que tienen hambre y todavía no llega ni un 5 de por allá. Pues yo me imagino que Estados Unidos ha de ser una población donde todas las personas están muy unidas. Los presidentes, todo eso de gobierno tienen que estar muy unidos para estar al pendiente de todas las familias pobres, porque me imagino que también hay pobres. Y aquí no, aquí estamos divididos. Ya por ahí personas que ya tienen su carrito, sus tractores, terrenos, vacas lecheras, y pues ya viven mucho más fácil que antes. Pero eso no todos, nada más los que se han ido al norte y que se han sabido aprovechar. Las mujeres llevando el almuerzo, tirando el abono, destapando, quitando el quelite, luego juntando los frijoles, luego variándolos, después armando las mazorcas a la casa. Pues todo eso hacemos nosotros aquí en el rancho. Se siente un ambiente tan tranquilo. Me voy a sentar debajo de un huizache a respirar el viento del campo y me gusta mucho el campo. Mucho gusto y gracias.
Pues yo creo que es muy grande, mucha gente, bonito. Pienso que es bonito. Mi papá desde siempre se ha ido y mi hermano es la primera vez que se va, pero ya está allá. No tienen papeles, ni mi hermano ni mi papá, y pues cruzan el río y uno no sabe nada y pues sí se queda pensando cómo les irá y todo. Pues muchos muchachos de aquí casi siempre sí dicen, ay, que me gustaría irme ya al norte y durar allá un buen tiempo. Y pues yo creo que está muy bonito allá y todo, pero mi papá se fue y casi duró 3 años allá. Teníamos una hermanita chiquita, pues la dejó como de meses y llegó ya casi 3 años. Pues sí, casi. Ay, pues ¿quién es la niña? No, pues sí, que es la de aquí y todo. Ya cuando llegó, pues no sabía ni cómo platicar con él, ni nada. Pero pues también muy bonito que llegó. Como quiera, pues duró poquito tiempo aquí y ahorita ya se fue otra vez, está allá otra vez.
Yo me pasaría a veces los 5 meses aquí y la más cantidad allá. Yo he sufrido de muchas cosas. La soledad es una de las principales. Toda mi gente aquí, tengo mis papás, tengo mis hijos. Aunque la jaula sea de oro, no deja de ser prisión. Va a cumplir años una chamaquita aquí de mis hijas. Y pues van a hacerle sus pastelitos.
Three times during the 80s, under pressure from foreign investors, Mexico devalued the peso. In 1994, under NAFTA, cheap U.S. agricultural products, especially corn, destroyed what was left of the Mexican small farm economy. When the U.S. government stalled on helping with debt, the peso went into free fall. For many Mexican states, human beings became the major export. The sudden devaluation of the peso also meant many more U.S. factory jobs moved to Mexico, where everything had become much cheaper. The wages the companies offered were worth even less, making it impossible for Mexican communities to survive. The same economic forces that took jobs away from factory workers in East Tennessee forced Mexican workers across the U.S.-Mexico border. Some traveled 1,000 miles to look for work in East Tennessee. Rudy Marquez exchanged labor for a room in the barn on a farm a few miles outside of Morristown.
I heard many times that life in America was easy, that almost everybody could get rich. And of course, that was a big lie. It was frustrating. It was really stressful and painful because I was raised in the city. I never worked in the fields, which I did here. We moved from Santa Ana, California to Fresno, then we went to Florida to here, picking up tomatoes or tobacco. I was working for 5 months at Burnett. Very hard, very hard. Especially during the winter, where the ice was on the floor and we had to move fast. Six an hour. And during that time, I was really missing my country, my family. I was here without papers. And it's like most of us are here. And it takes a lot of money and dangers to come back across the border. There have been many people who have died trying to come here. With the pass of the time, more people started coming here because there were plenty of jobs that American people won't take, the backbreaking jobs. And you can see it at Burnett, you can see it everywhere. There are just Hispanic people. What we get paid is not really cheap from our point of view, because once you know, I get some money, if I can send them from here to there, is 7 times more. It's been a long time living by myself, keeping my thoughts to myself, and then when I'm with my family, we can spend the whole day talking about anything.
How long is it since you've been to see them?
It's gonna be a year.
Oh, that's really long.
It's a lot like when people in Tennessee went to like Michigan to work. The young boys that went north to worked for less than probably what the people there would work for. Burnett says, well, we can't hire anybody. Well, the reason they can't hire anybody is because the conditions are awful. They have to wear rubber boots and they stand in water. And we had a young man killed last year here because he was working on a electrical line and he came in contact with water and killed him. Farmers say, well, they can't hire anybody to do the job. Well, they can't hire a slave. They can't hire a slave, and that's what they're after. They're after somebody that'll work 12 to 14 hours a day, don't take any breaks, and work like your life depends on it. And the Mexicans go out there and they work like slaves. And so the Americans say, oh boy, we've got us a good worker here. Well, you're working them like dogs. And we don't seem to think that there's anything wrong with that in this country. We think that's okay. We want paper towel employees. You just use them as long as it's beneficial to you, and then you just throw them away and you get some more and start all over.
It had been more than 10 years since Shirley and the other factory workers visited the maquiladoras, and Morristown was changing. Hamlin County was home to one of the fastest-growing Latino populations in the state of Tennessee, and tensions had increased. A diabetic man took a bottle of water into a Walmart restroom, was accused of stealing it, and was deported. A local branch of the Arizona Minutemen opened downtown. Still, the numbers of Latino workers continued to grow, along with the demand for their labor. And workers sent money back to their families in Mexico, where it was worth 7 to 9 times more.
¿Cuánto vale el dinero que mandaste hoy?
$3,517 pesos. Un poquito.
Mándalo para la familia.
Sí, mando 150 más. Y la otra semana mando más. Y otra semana yo te digo.
No, me gusta más en México. Ahí hay para jugar, ahí hay todo. Y aquí, nomás encerrado en la casa.
Latino workers began to settle in, sometimes with their families, and temp agencies opened in Morristown to broker their labor. These temp agencies protected companies from questions of legal status and documentation, and generally charged companies twice as much as they paid out for hourly wages and benefits.
Yeah, we after, of course, they've been with the company for a year, we give them a week vacation. We do pay 4 major holidays. We also have a sort of a loaning company here where we loan money to our workers. We also opened up a small car lot, but along with all those benefits, the number one is always that we're always trying to point them to the cross. We're always trying to tell them about the Lord, and we're just a vine that, you know, the juices flow from.
Just like instant people, I called it this morning and want 5 people, and they'd be here in maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Antonio is one of our workers. He's been with my company for off and on for about the past 4 years. He's been probably here for about a month and a half. He's fairly new here to this particular job. He really comes in and puts a lot of effort and is very cautious because this is a very dangerous job working with machinery. So they have to be real careful about what they're doing, and he's one of those that is very attentive when he's working. Very sharp blade. Yeah. We've had several injuries here. Fingers, hands, things of that nature. I don't believe that the Hispanic race is coming in taking American jobs. I believe they're taking jobs that the Americans don't want. And the ones that are griping and complaining are usually the ones that are lazy and don't want to work. I think that that's what a lot of the companies look at when they see Hispanics is, you know, these are hard workers that are coming in and they're not going to give us no lip. They're not going to talk back to us. They're not going to do nothing. They're just basically going to come in and work and do their job. We can go back to corporate men that started great corporations and companies. They tremendous work ethic. They knew that it was going to take a lot of hard work and time to get and build this country. And I think everyone in the world still looks to the United States as the country. That's the country we go to for freedom, liberty, and justice for all. And we're going to go there and we're going to take a little piece of the pie.
In spite of pending legal difficulties, Maximino Garcia served on the Cultural Diversity Committee of the Morristown Chamber of Commerce. But the chamber was mainly concerned with other matters. Using taxpayer money, Morristown was constructing its 3rd industrial park.
It changes the game of how you play the world. The EDA project picks up where the initial grading of roads and the park ended, completes Progress Parkway, $1.5 million federal dollars, all told. We're now $3.9 million in construction in the park this summer.
Tom, and I understand you, Mr. Fishman, are planning on attending the trade show in Birmingham, England, and Mayor Johnson will be traveling to Japan.
We got our tickets. I was having a discussion with my next door neighbor who was back on leave from China where he currently works, and it was interesting to me. He said that they're after our technology, and he was helping transmit that. And he said, but what they're after is the most automated plants they can possibly get. If there's a lot of handwork and a lot of labor, they don't want to do it in China. They ship it out to where the inexpensive labor is, in their words, in Vietnam and Cambodia and Malaysia.
Well, we may lose one to China and gain 3 Japanese and 1 French company this year.
What do we need to do to be in the courtship game? That's the thing that we've got to find out. What do they want?
If they're looking for the deal, we're going to have to hustle hard.
Well, I've worked in industrial recruitment for 20 years. If you draw a bullseye around Morristown, over 70% of the U.S. population is within a one-day truck drive, so that makes it very nice. A lot of times the haze on the mountains is smoky. That's why they call them the Smoky Mountains. It's really a pretty area. We'll have a 4-lane with a divided median, so it's going to be a very attractive entrance to the industrial park. You have companies that move in, companies that move out. We've been able to have more moving in than out, and we hope to continue that, and we believe we can.
First of all, I want to welcome you to Toyota TRW Automotive. We're a joint venture company and established in November of 1989, and this is a gift from us, from our parent companies at our grand opening, and it is a precious stone. It's granite, and it represents the global market that we participate in. The very first application we took, we didn't publish it, and we had 500-some people show up for the first 15 jobs.
Left side shows the first product, and right side is 1 million pumps accumulated. And center is 10 million pumps. So we will have the 20 million pumps this September. Then we put another eye.
Some of the laid-off workers in Morristown managed to land jobs in these plants at half the rate of northern workers, but very few. Toyota friends, or robots, worked in the background.
I'm seeing 1,000 acres with many beautiful industrial plants, and I know that may sound strange.
Feng Shui Industrial Park. This is private interest wanting public funds spent to contest one county against another for who can reach the bottom first and getting screwed by these big companies to keep some jobs, which they don't. They don't sign a contract saying, we'll take care of the infrastructure, we'll build your industrial park, and you'll stay here for 10 years. Yeah, not likely. Whatever little bit is left of the manufacturing base has, you know, they're in gravy. You know, they can get counties killing each other to see who can give the best deal to them. And then they look like heroes for getting it. Even though they're, you know, that no one's pointing out that you just stole them from them. How long is it going to be before somebody else steals them from you after you've given them the farm? Literally, you know, bulldoze it over and pour it in concrete.
Betty was barely holding on to her factory job making television sets, and Delmas was forced out of his job at Brookline Furniture. They decided to mortgage their farm and invest in chicken houses as part of a deal with a chicken plant in Morristown.
I'll be 59 my birthday, and I was 20-year-old. I went to work, so I like what I'm doing, but I just make, I think 888, I believe. Maybe the next, I don't know if we get a raising soon or not. I might make 9, but I doubt it. Of course, we don't have any benefits.
Took all
you know,
that away.
They took all of our benefits away. We have no retirement, which was a big thing. Tennessee don't have good retirement, no way, but now we really don't have nothing.
Do they have plants in Mexico or?
They get that cheap flavor down there, they bring it back up here, and then they put the cabbage out and sell it to them.
Dallas's job, and he began to hate going to Berkeley because he cut and pay.
Cut me down from 1243 to about
641, right?
And they gave you a recliner for all your years?
Yeah. Said I wasn't supposed to got that recliner because that was too much. It had a certain amount. And he said, well, I think you deserve that thing for being there 26 years, so just take it on. He said, it was about $100 more, wasn't it, or something? It might have been 100.
We loaded up and brought it home. And then we sort of looked into this, and it looked like pretty good money, but we didn't know all the money was going to be involved. Plus, we didn't know, we knew Dallas had a touch of emphysema, but we didn't realize that he had quite a bit of it. But then, when you're in it, you're in it. It's just the way it is,
Did you invest in the chicken houses? Did you?
I say we invested. They're $75,000 a piece.
$75,000 a piece in each house.
We got a farm loan.
And if the chickens die, who takes that risk?
We do. We lost 7,000 out of that first grow out.
I think basically they would like for our living standards to come down, and they are. And they really are, But we're far from being in the shape they are in Mexico. They're just as good as I am. They're here, and I don't blame them. I'd come across the border too every chance I got. Whether I was legal, if I was illegal, that's just fine too. I still would come across.
I was hoping I was like in California or Florida or something. That's what I was wanting to be. And see those big buildings and offices and when I came here I was like, it looks the same. I mean, what's the difference? We live almost the same. I mean, look outside and everything. They were really mean to me. They just called me things and told me to go back where I came from and all different sorts of things. Monterey mushroom, yeah.
Mucha gente se preguntará si te tratan mal, ¿por qué no regresas a tu país? Pero esas personas sabrán lo que es tener la responsabilidad de llevar el pan a sus hijos. Nosotros no somos animales, somos seres humanos, al igual que ellos. Yo pienso que la unión es la única que nos puede ayudar a salir adelante. Y hacerles ver a ellos que pongan los pies en el suelo, que ya es tiempo de que vean la realidad, que no nos traten como lo están haciendo, porque lo que están haciendo no es justo. Nosotros no queremos discriminaciones como las que tenemos allí, y nosotros no queremos promesas. Lo que queremos es un contrato hecho de acuerdo a ambos lados para poderlo respetar, y por esa razón tratamos de unirnos, no para hacerle mal a nadie, sino para tratar de salir adelante y que las cosas se mejoren para todos.
While attempting with his co-workers to organize the plant, Artemio was fired. He was accused of terrorism, planning to plant a bomb and assassinate a supervisor, but no charges were ever filed against him. The organizing drive at Monterey Mushrooms failed.
My name is Barclay Bell. I'm the District Attorney General for the 3rd Judicial District of the state of Tennessee. By and large, they're hard-working Christian people. They changed my preconceptions. Now, they've brought some problems with them. They are the source of our cocaine distribution. They also bring different cultural values with them, particularly in the way they look at young females. But other than that, those drugs, sexual charges, I guess the greatest contribution they've made to the justice system is homicides. But the homicides have been in the Hispanic community. There haven't been many, I can't think of any right now off the top of my head, outside of the community. But there have been a lot of homicides in the community, and that's also part of their the values, the cultural values that they've brought with them. They have a high sense of honor and a high sense of revenge. And they kill each other frequently.
What were your preconceptions like?
That they were lazy, that the women did the work and the men didn't do anything.
We're here in the park. It's 1,000 acres of industrial park. The Hispanic worker has filled a void. Still, it does create some concerns on some of the public officials' parts. We have several international companies in this park. We also have a chicken processing facility, Cooked Foods, one of the nation's premier companies. They have a place where people still know each other, still very friendly. I jokingly referred to it, but with great affection, had called it Mayberry with a mall.
You have a right to remain silent. You have a right not to speak to the police if you don't want to. You have a right to a lawyer. Then you have to waive all these rights to make a statement. Came out to, you have a right not to use your rights, is the literal translation. Folks are going to keep coming, and that's the reality. And I don't think anybody's even, we're talking about what do you do, how's the system dealing with this new problem? The system doesn't recognize this as a problem and doesn't want to deal with it. They want to maintain the status quo. They want to maintain that disparate treatment of human beings. Open the borders? That's what they should do. In the European economic community, if you're British, you can go to France and work. You don't have to ask anybody's permission. Here we want economic pacts, which allow goods and services and profits and money to cross borders freely, but not human beings, because we want some of them to be slaves for the rest of us. And we should be talking about that. We should be talking about an open border. Don't hold your breath.
The global economy was moving on to countries where they could pay even lower wages. It's hard to imagine maquiladora workers not having jobs. After all, communities created by globalization like Anapra, just across the U.S.-Mexico border, are unsustainable even with jobs at GE and GM.
Toda la gente que vivimos aquí somos de bajos recursos, toda la gente, toda. Pues nos vinimos del estado de Zacatecas porque allá pues no hay mucha fuente de vida y vinimos a trabajar. Y tengo apenas 5 años viviendo aquí en esos cuartitos aquí. Entonces, ahorita trabaja mi esposo y 2 hijas mías. Trabajan en una maquiladora, perciben sueldos de maquiladoras y pues no es suficiente, pues compramos agua de las pipas, para la comida, pues para medio vestir, lo que es un hogar, tratar de sobrevivir en esto. No se espera nada, yo digo que no se espera, bueno, yo no espero nada del futuro, nada más, pues vivir, se está viviendo nada más. No espero nada yo del futuro porque, pues para mí, para nosotros, para mi familia, esto es todo nuestro futuro, es todo lo que tenemos.
The culture in Mexico is very artistic. When you put somebody to do a particular chore, and I'm not talking about wood carving or whatever, I'm talking about something technical, you'll see that come out in their heritage, that the delicateness of doing something as an artisan and not as a, for instance, industrial worker. I think that has been something that has helped us succeed in many areas in Mexico. You have to respect the laws or in the rules the company that the country where you live in, work in, right? So you can basically disrupt an economic structure. The other day, when a company told me, he says, Roberto, my God, I got to give my people food stamps, which the maquilas give, a certain part of their percentage of their salary. I've got to give them food stamps. I've got to give them transportation. Now I got to feed them lunch. If companies from the States don't find avenues in how to make the product cheaper, they're not going to make the product. That's the cruelty of a global economy, is that you have to get a good product, good quality, at the cheapest price possible. And to sell it at the cheapest price possible, you got to make it at the cheapest price possible. That's the facts. Whether you'd like to pay people more, or you don't want to pay people more, or you want this to be over here, or you want it to be somewhere else, the driving force is not our heart. The driving force is, why are you there to begin with, is to make that toaster, or make that TV set, or make that whatever. That's why you're there. And you try to make the best out of the situation you're in, and still be in a situation where you were meant to be when you moved to that particular place, whether it be China, whether it be Mexico, whether it be Haiti, whether it be Chile, or whatever.
¿Es peligroso o no? ¿Y para si lo pisas así descalzo?
No da toque.
Pero para si bebé que no es muy peligroso.
That's just his exposed wire everywhere, and these kids are around. That's the border of the soccer field, and they're living in houses made out of the big plastic things that they would put bread on. And these are the people who are making your GM Motors car, and making your television, and making your clothes. We continue to create large groups of angry people. At some point, they're going to eat you. And, you get choices on how you do that. Either you deal with them justly and try to remedy the problem, or forget the sunscreen and start using ketchup, because you're going to be the meal sooner or later.
Now, looking back on that, it was going to be a great thing. They were going to raise wages in Mexico. The people down there were going to have a better life. But from where I stand, I don't see anything that we've benefited from. We don't make anything in this country. If they shut down the ports, we'd be naked and barefooted. Can we not make anything? Or have we got money so high on the priority list that we don't want to make anything? We can move someplace else and we can make it cheaper. We can use slave labor. And the people in the United States don't have a problem with using slave labor. They'll use it. They'd use it here in Hamlin County if they could.
The right to organize is a human right, and it's a democratic right, and it's the law. But the law is not obeyed very much on this matter in this country. That's what we want to talk about tonight, and we'll hear how difficult, but also the aspirations of people who aspire to that democracy in the workplace in our area.
Señoras y señores,
Ladies and gentlemen,
es un placer para mí estar aquí con ustedes y dar un testimonio de una experiencia vivida en el estado de Tennessee.
If you could ask the community represented by the folks here today, for action on their part, what would you ask for?
Lo que pediría es que tratáramos de ver los problemas de todos los empleados, de todas las compañías. De no ser así, no podemos lograr absolutamente nada.
With community support, the Morristown Cooked Foods workers decided to organize. The United Food and Commercial Workers Union, responding to the workers' request, sent organizers who based at a Morristown motel and went to visit workers in their homes.
Nos tratan mal. La verdad nos tratan mal. Hay mucho discriminación adentro. Venimos de México. Sabemos cuál es de la avenida caminando en el desierto. Sufrimos mucho y que llegamos y nos maltratan en este país. Si tú dices algo, te voy a correr. Está la puerta abierta, está muy abierta, puedes ir a tu casa, dice. Si no quieres trabajar de equipo, ahí me sacaron 7.60. Tengo
5 años y medio. 5 años y medio trabajando, sirviendo ese.
La única vez que podíamos ir al baño es a las 6 y a las 9, nomás 2 veces, o sea, porque eso es del break y del lonche nomás. Pero ya de ahí no dejaban a nadie ir al break.
2 veces por día, total por las 8 horas.
Okay. Y mucha gente se hacían del baño en la línea. Sí, se hacían del baño en la ropa.
¿Accidentes en la línea?
Sí, porque ya no se aguantaban del baño.
¿Y los dejaban a las personas ir a limpiar y...?
No,
¿No?
a cambiarse, quedarse todo el día así, sucios todo el día.
Sí, así se quedaban.
Wow.
Ellos una vez cuando hicimos huelga, una vez todos nos pusimos de acuerdo y salimos, todos nos bajamos, fuimos al baño. Y esa vez fue cuando llegaron los de la planta grande, todos los mayordomos, y dijeron que iban a tratar de que nosotros saliéramos al break. Pero tampoco, lo hicieron por casi una semana nomás y ya de ahí volvió lo mismo. Exactamente. Mucha gente le entra agua en el ojo y ya, si no avisan luego, se le...
¿Irrita?
Se le hincha el ojo. Me pusieron un montón de curitas, le digo, yo no quiero eso, le digo...
¿Todo esto te cortaste con el cuchillo?
Platiquen ustedes entre todos los trabajadores, únanse, en la unión está la fuerza, amigas. Todos unidos podemos progresar.
Y todos entienden, ¿verdad?, que esta lucha va a ser duro, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Y es ustedes, no nosotros. Nosotros estamos apoyando que ustedes tienen que hacer esta cosa.
Es la única opción que tenemos, porque la unión es la única manera en la cual nosotros tenemos el valor de unirnos. Solamente de esa manera vamos a conseguir un cambio.
Y la compañía te dice que no tienes derechos porque son inmigrantes, ¿verdad?
Sí, es lo que nos dicen.
Y ahora sabes que sí tienes derechos.
Justo aquí tengo tarjetas que ya la gente está firmando de que sí está de acuerdo, que todos queremos que haya un cambio en el trabajo y solamente con la unión lo vamos a poder lograr.
Unidos sí se puede.
Unidos.
La unión está la fuerza.
Juntos está la fuerza.
It's going to be a good struggle. For the first time in this area, for a predominantly Hispanic workforce at a major corporation, to elect to have an international union in the workplace is pretty remarkable. It's great. I really hope they win. They may not, but this won't be forgotten for sure. But if they would win, boy, that would be terrific. Everywhere, they will know that it's possible to come into the heart of the United States in the South and win an election and have a union and raise your wages and have dignity in the place and be able to stand up and talk for yourself. It'll be terrific.
I think it would be tremendous. What you're saying to all the others from Mexico, you're saying they don't have to treat you worse than they do anybody else. You can organize. That's exactly what you're saying. Not only are you saying that to the people from Mexico, but you're saying that to the people of Hamilton County, too.
¿Qué pasó anoche? ¿Cómo le fue anoche?
Muy bien, todos votaron, la mayoría votaron en favor.
Chévere, congratulations.
Buenos días, vamos a ganar, señoras, ¿ok? Hay que ganar. Ahora es el gran día de ustedes, ¿eh? Es el triunfo ahora, gracias.
I'm a painter in the 437 local. I work on TVA dams. They're exploiting too many people around this town. Morristown's famous for that. For human rights, that's all. And they deserve it as well as you or me.
Go see the ballots be counted next half hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
I don't have a problem with getting people to join the union when they hire in. It's just that our numbers are so low now where our jobs have been exported that we just don't have the numbers we once did. You know, one time we were 3,500 members strong. But I could offer them the local 815 Union Hall to do all their business, to hold rallies, but I did what I could do.
dije que no estaba nervioso, ¿verdad?
No kidding. All right. Love it. I love it.
They're stacking the yeses, they're stacking the yeses, stacking yeses. We're like, where's the nose?
Se hizo un gran éxito. Ya lo vieron. Tuvieron 65 y 18 en contra.
Pues sí, la verdad.
Gracias a ustedes, a todos.
Organizaciones, estamos orgullosos también de nuestros compañeros que por fin decidieron romper con esa barrera de miedo que le hemos tenido a la compañía y la verdad estamos súper contentos con la respuesta de ellos porque si no hubiéramos estado unidos no se hubiera podido hacer esto y ahora ganamos 465, 18 en contra, pues es.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. It's great. I think it's going to be good for the community, good for the workers.
Yeah.
It'll spread.
Victoria. Thank you.
See you, man.
Yeah, for real.
Gracias. Bye.
Way to go, bro.
After 6 months of unsuccessful negotiation, the company submitted its last best offer. The cooked foods workers turned it down unanimously. A month later, they approved a union contract that included eye protection, bathroom breaks, health insurance, and higher wages.
But I believe God directed us here. I don't believe in coincidences. I just believe we had a purpose here.
Maximino Garcia and 2 of his associates pled guilty to human trafficking and money laundering.
Tell us about this.
Well, first of all, I want to welcome you to Toyota TRW.
TRW pulled out of the joint venture. Toyota Koki now owns the Morristown plant.
But where are you going to get the money?
Former Phillips Magnavox worker Barbara Knight became a union organizer. Her daughter still works in the
You're
plant.
going to get your flour in a sack again so you can make yourself a dress?
Yes.
And why should we have to?
The plant she works at is still Phillips. And they've gone from 100 and some people down to, what, 29?
28. We lost one product.
In 1989, we had almost 4,000 people, and Phillips is just getting bigger and fatter, and the people are just being used along the way, you know, as they go from country to country.
Can I ask you what you're making now an hour?
I make $12.47. I've been here for 31 years. Who's gonna hire somebody like me if I get laid off? I'm almost 50 years old. I don't think so. They'll say it's not age, but they...
Plus you've got all that union background.
Well, that would be my number one not getting, and I'm probably blackballed in the state of Tennessee.
Do you identify with the Latino workers?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The hard struggle that they have, a right to a voice, a right to respect, a right to have a say in what happens in your workplace. It's a struggle that we have to fight all the time, all the time.